The black and white checkered floor gleamed under flickering neon lights that buzzed like trapped insects, the smell of burnt coffee and old grease hanging thick in the air at 3:22 in the morning, and Mia Morales sat alone in the corner booth of Pete's diner with her hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee she could not afford to drink. Outside, summer lightning split the Boston sky purple-white, and thunder rattled the windows like fists demanding entry. 3 other patrons scattered in distant booths pretended not to notice the homeless woman in the oversized denim jacket, the only clean thing she owned, the jacket that covered the bruises on her ribs from Douglas Hale's latest visit. She had not eaten. She had not slept. The bell above the door chimed sharp and terrible, and a small child stumbled through the glass entrance into the diner, barefoot, wearing nothing but a torn pink nightgown soaked dark with rain. The girl's arms were covered in bruises blooming purple like flowers, and her eyes held the wild, trapped terror of something hunted. Mia moved without thinking. She crossed the distance in 4 strides, pulled the shaking child into the corner booth, wrapped her in the only protection she had, the denim jacket, her own body, her trembling arms. The girl was 8 years old, maybe smaller, and she gasped like she'd been underwater for too long and had just broken the surface. "It's okay," Mia whispered, though nothing was okay. "You're safe now. You're safe." The child pressed her face against Mia's chest, and her voice came out shattered like glass. "They hurt him. My papa. They hurt him and I ran. I just ran." "Who hurt him, sweetheart? Who was it?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. She whispered a single name that made the night cook look up sharply from the griddle, made his hand still on the spatula. A name spoken in shelters and streets in tones reserved for gods and storms. Luca Caruso. Outside, rain hammered the windows in sheets, and 2 blocks away, a black SUV pulled up to the curb outside the emergency room at Massachusetts General Hospital. The door opened. A man emerged into the downpour, and water streamed down his face like tears he could not cry. Luca Caruso was 6'2", built broad across the shoulders like someone shaped from stone, wearing nothing but a black silk shirt plastered to his chest, and his face was the color of rage. His dark eyes burned like coals, and a thin scar ran from his left cheekbone to his jaw, a permanent reminder of the man who had raised him and taught him that mercy was weakness. He did not know his daughter was alive. He only knew that somewhere in this city, she was missing, and somewhere in this city, the people responsible for taking her were still breathing. That knowledge burned in his chest like a blade wrapped in ice. Inside the diner, the child had stopped shaking. She looked up at Mia with eyes that had seen too much. Are you going to hurt me too?" "No, baby. No. I will never hurt you. My name is Mia." "What's yours?" "Emma." The girl's voice was barely a whisper. "Emma Caruso." Mia's stomach dropped. She knew that name. Everyone in Boston knew that name. Luca Caruso did not have enemies because his enemies did not live long enough to remain his enemies. He had loyalty, empire, a reputation that made police officers cross the street to avoid him. And he had a daughter. "Okay, Emma," Mia said, keeping her voice steady even as her mind raced. "We need to call your father. We need to tell him you're safe." "No." Emma grabbed her arm, her small fingers digging in like claws. "No, he'll come here and he'll kill them and the police will arrest him. They want him to come. That's why they took me." Understanding crashed over Mia like cold water. This was a trap. Emma was bait. The girl's father was the most dangerous man in Boston, and someone had decided to use his daughter as a leash. The diner's phone hung on the wall behind the counter. Pete, the owner, a man in his 60s with tired eyes and a liver spot spreading across his forehead, stood motionless. He was looking at Mia. He was looking at Emma. He was calculating the cost of making this phone call. "I'll do it," Mia said. She stood up, her legs unsteady. She walked to the phone on shaking legs that had carried her through 8 years of Douglas Hale's violence, through nights sleeping in her 2008 Honda Civic, through rationing food and counting coins and convincing herself that survival was still possible. She picked up the phone. Her hands trembled as she dialed the number. Emma whispered, a number the girl had memorized the way children memorize the phone numbers of people who owned them. The line rang once. Twice. On the third ring, a man answered, and his voice came through the line like venom. Who is this, and why are you calling this number at 3 in the morning? Mia swallowed. My name is Mia Morales. I have your daughter. She's safe. She's here at Pete's Diner on Hanover Street. She ran from whoever took her, and she came to me. She's safe. Silence. Absolute, consuming silence. Mia could hear the rain outside, the hum of the diner's fluorescent lights, the sound of Emma's breathing somewhere behind her. When Luca Caruso spoke again, his voice had changed. It sounded like a man whose entire world had stopped spinning. Do not let her leave that booth. I will be there in 12 minutes. The line went dead. Emma came to stand beside Mia, and she reached out and took her hand. The child's skin was cold, smaller than Mia's own, and Mia realized she was holding someone else's reason to live. She was holding someone else's entire world. Mama? Emma asked quietly. No, sweetheart. Not Mama. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Pete had disappeared into the back of the diner. The 3 other patrons had quietly gathered their things and left. Outside, the rain continued to fall like a curtain between the diner and the rest of the world, and somewhere in the wet darkness of Boston, a man was driving toward them at speeds that would have earned him arrest from anyone brave enough to pull him over. 11 minutes and 30 seconds remained. Mia guided Emma back to the corner booth. She sat beside the girl and wrapped the denim jacket tighter around her small shoulders. The photograph in Mia's pocket, the only photograph she had left, a faded Polaroid of her late husband taken before the cancer, before everything fell apart, felt heavier than usual against her ribs. She did not know that in the next 4 hours and 16 minutes, she would make a choice that would cost her the $78 in her bank account, every cent of her desperate survival fund, the last money standing between her and complete annihilation. She did not know that this single night would collide with the 3-day deadline Sophie Langford had given her, the $35,000 in debt that Mia had promised to pay by Friday or lose the custody agreement over her sister's inheritance, the only legal claim she had left. She only knew that a child was shaking against her, and that when a certain man walked through that diner door, everything would change. Outside, lightning split the sky again, and the sound of a black SUV pulling up to the curb cut through the rain like a promise, like a curse, like the moment before everything becomes irrevocable. The door to the diner opened. Luca Caruso stood in the entrance, rain streaming down his face, his dark eyes burning as they found his daughter alive in a stranger's arms. He was tall. He was dangerous. He was a father who had just learned his child was breathing, and something in his face shifted, something that made even the hardened night cook take a step back toward the kitchen, sensing that he was witnessing a moment that did not belong to anyone but the 3 people in that corner booth. Luca did not move toward Emma. Instead, he looked at Mia. He looked at her as if he could see through her skin, through her ribs, all the way to the place where she had hidden her capacity to care for something other than her own survival. And in that look, Mia understood that her life had already changed. In that look, something cold and dangerous stirred in his chest that had nothing to do with violence and everything to do with debt, with obligation, with a code older than the law that demanded he repay what had been given to him. When he finally spoke, his voice was deep and solid like an oath. Thank you for my daughter. I do not forget who saves what I love. Mia did not know that he meant it as a promise. She did not know that 20 black limousines would arrive tomorrow to find her. She did not know that her life as nobody, as invisible, as disposable, had just ended, and her life as something else entirely had just begun. 6 months earlier, the courthouse steps were wet with November rain, and Mia Morales stood beside her 2008 Honda Civic with everything she owned packed into 2 garbage bags and a cracked leather backpack. Inside that backpack, a photograph of Daniel, her husband, who had died 3 years ago when a construction crane collapsed on the job site. In the photograph, Daniel was laughing. He was alive. He was hers. She also carried 1 change of clothes, a toothbrush, a bar of soap, and $78 in cash. $78. That was all that remained from the divorce settlement after legal fees, after the restraining order that the courts issued but the police never enforced because the man she was hiding from wore a badge to the side. Douglas Hale stood 20 feet away beside his police cruiser, and he was smiling that smile. The smile that had made her stomach turn to ice for the past 2 years. He was tall in the way that made doorways feel smaller, with the kind of broad shoulders that filled a room with the promise of controlled violence. His hair was dark, slicked back from his forehead, and his eyes were light gray, not warm, not cold, but empty in the way that made Mia think of a perfectly programmed machine. He wore his detective's badge clipped to his belt, and he wore it like armor against accountability. He walked toward her. His footsteps on the wet concrete were slow, unhurried, the kind of footsteps a predator uses when it knows the prey cannot run fast enough. "You'll be back," Douglas said. His voice was smooth, reasonable, like a man discussing the weather instead of a man whose fists had redecorated her face 17 times in 24 months. "You always come back. Where else are you going to go? You're damaged goods, Mia. Nobody else is going to want what I'm throwing away." She did not answer. Her hands shook as she gripped the steering wheel, but she started the engine. The Civic coughed to life, it always coughed, and she pulled away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, Douglas stood watching. He was not chasing her because he did not need to chase her. He knew where she worked. He knew where her mother lived, before her mother stopped taking her calls. He knew the shelter on Hanover Street where she volunteered because he drove past sometimes, just to remind her that he was always watching. The car smelled like stale coffee and rust. Over the next 6 months, Mia learned the geography of invisibility. She learned that the 24-hour laundromat on Hanover Street had security cameras, and she learned exactly which angle made them point away from the parking lot in back. She learned which gas stations let you use the bathroom at 5 in the morning before the attendants arrived, which ones asked questions, which ones didn't care. She learned that newspapers, when laid correctly in the back seat of a Honda Civic, provided insulation against November cold. She learned that her reflection in the rearview mirror was becoming a stranger, someone with hollowed cheeks, someone whose eyes had seen too much too soon. $78 became $60 when the alternator started making sounds like a wounded animal. $60 became $30 after she went to the emergency room one Tuesday when Douglas found her reading at the library and shoved her into a bookshelf hard enough that something in her ribs cracked. The police came. Douglas was there in his uniform, and he told them she was unstable, that she liked to hurt herself for attention, that she had made everything up about him. The police wrote down his account. They did not write down hers. They left. Douglas waited in the parking lot for 3 hours. $30 became $18 when she started volunteering at St. Catherine's Shelter on Tuesday and Thursday nights. Not because she wanted to help. Not because she had any strength left to give. But because the shelter was a place where Douglas could not come. It was safe. And there, in the corner of the common room where the children colored pictures, she met Emma. Emma was 8 years old, with brown eyes that held a sadness that had no business being in a child's face. She drew pictures of houses with too many locks on the doors. Chains on the windows. Guards at the gate. Emma never talked about her father. She never mentioned a name. She just said, "Papa works at night. He is important. He keeps people safe." But something in how she said it, the way her small hands trembled when she drew those locks, told Mia that Emma understood danger the way only children who had lived near it truly did. 3 weeks ago, Emma had started asking if she could sit with Mia during dinner. Mia had saved her $18 and bought Emma new shoes because Emma's were held together with tape. Emma had cried. She had never seen a child cry like that over shoes. Mia did not know that Emma was searching for her. Across the city, in an office above the Bella Vista restaurant, Luca Caruso stood at a floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the Boston skyline. He was 34 years old but carried himself like a man twice his age. He was tall, 6'2", with a kind of muscular frame that came from gym hours and the kind of bearing that came from knowing that most people would move out of his way before he had to ask them to move. His suit was charcoal and cost $3,000. His shirt was white silk, open at the neck, revealing a chest marked with a tattoo in Italian script, a name, a date, a prayer. His hair was dark, combed back without vanity, and along his left jawline ran a scar, a thin, white, running from temple to chin, a souvenir from when his father had thrown a whiskey glass at him when Luca was 16 and told him he was soft. Luca was not soft. The phone on his desk rang. It was Elena, Emma's piano tutor, and her voice was fast and frightened. "She never arrived," Elena said. "I waited until 3. She was supposed to arrive at 2:30, and she never came." Something inside Luca stopped. Not his breathing. His heart kept beating. But something deeper went quiet, went still, like the moment before lightning strikes. "Where was she before your studio?" His voice was deep and solid like an oath. "I don't know. The driver dropped her. I assumed." He hung up. He pressed the button for Marco, his oldest lieutenant, a man who had been beside him for 17 years. Marco appeared in the doorway wearing a grey suit and the expression of someone who had learned long ago not to show surprise at anything. "Emma," Luca said. One word. That was all he needed to say. Marco's face changed. "I will find her. 20 men. Start with the school. Start with the driver. Start with everywhere she has been in the last 2 years. And call the shelter on Hanover, the one where she goes on Thursdays. She likes the volunteer there." As Marco turned to leave, Luca caught him by the arm. Something was burning in his chest. Something that had nothing to do with his empire, his business, his reputation, and everything to do with a memory from 34 years ago. A memory of his own mother, bleeding on a kitchen floor. A memory of 8-year-old Luca hiding in a closet, listening to his father beat the woman who had given him life. He had made a promise that night, on his knees in that dark closet, that no child under his protection would ever know that fear. No child would ever hide. No child would ever listen to violence and believe that the world was a place where the strong could do anything to the weak. "Find her," Luca said. "Do not sleep until you find her." Marco left without another word. Outside, the rain began to fall harder. It came down in sheets, like someone had opened the sky and poured out all the water that the world had been holding back. The wind was ice. The temperature dropped. And somewhere in that rain, Emma ran. She had been walking home from piano, thinking about the nice lady with sad eyes at the shelter, when a black SUV pulled up beside her. 2 men got out. They were not gentle. One of them grabbed her arm and said her father's name like it was a curse, and Emma understood in the way that children always understand that something was very wrong. She understood that these men wanted to use her the way the news said bad men use children when they wanted something from powerful people. She understood that she needed to run. So she ran. She ran through the rain, through the streets she had memorized on Thursday nights when the volunteer, Mia, drove her to the shelter. She ran toward the one place in the city that felt like safety. She ran toward Pete's Diner on Hanover Street, 3 blocks from the laundromat where Mia slept, because Emma had followed her there once, quietly, understanding in the way children do that the nice lady was sad and alone and needed someone to make sure she was okay. The diner was lit up against the darkness, a beacon of neon and warmth, and Emma's small legs carried her through the rain like something driven by instinct rather than thought. Her shoes, the shoes Mia had bought her, splashed through puddles that mirrored the lightning splitting open the sky above. She was soaked. She was terrified. She was 7 years old and she had watched too much and understood too much. But she knew where to go. When the door to Pete's Diner opened, when the bell above it chimed and a child stumbled into the fluorescent light, shaking and bruised and looking for the only person in the world who had ever shown her kindness without expecting something in return, Mia Morales was sitting in the back booth with a cup of coffee she could not afford, reading a book from the free library, trying not to think about the fact that winter was coming and she still had not figured out where she would sleep when the temperature dropped below freezing. Emma's eyes found her across the diner, and something in Mia's chest, something that had been broken for so long she had forgotten it could work, came back to life. The rain fell like a curse that would not lift. It hammered the windows of Pete's Diner on Hanover Street at 3:22 in the morning, a sound like 10,000 fists demanding entry, and Mia Morales sat in the back booth with a cup of coffee she could not afford, reading a book from the free library, trying not to think about the fact that winter was coming and she still had not figured out where she would sleep when the temperature dropped below freezing. Her hands wrapped around the ceramic mug for warmth. That was the only reason. Not comfort. Never comfort. The bell above the diner door chimed. A child stumbled through the rain like something driven by instinct rather than thought. Her shoes, small, wet, inadequate against the storm, splashed across the black and white checkered floor. The girl was 7 years old, soaked through, shaking, with bruises blooming purple across her small arms like flowers growing in soil that should have been barren. Emma. Luca Caruso's daughter. Her eyes found Mia across the diner, and something in Mia's chest, something that had been broken for so long she had forgotten it could work, came back to life. She moved without thinking. Her body understood before her mind caught up. The booth, the child, the small voice trembling like a candle in the wind. Emma. Oh, Emma. Mia pulled her into the corner booth, into the dry shelter of her borrowed jacket, a donation from the shelter, someone else's kindness sewn into the seams. She dampened paper napkins in her water glass and wiped the girl's face with movements that asked permission, that did not assume. What happened? Are you hurt? Where's your papa? Emma's words came in fragments, disconnected like pieces of a mirror. Men grabbed her. She was at the restaurant with her tutor and men came in asking questions about Papa, asking about Luca, and they grabbed her arm, and she kicked one in the shin and ran because Mia had taught her to be brave and she knew where brave people went. She ran to the diner. She ran to Mia. I'm scared, Emma whispered. I'm scared about Papa. What if they hurt him? Mia held her. That was all she could do. Hold a child who had learned too early that the world was dangerous, and speak the only truth she had, your papa is the strongest person I've ever seen. Nothing is going to hurt him. 25 minutes passed this way. The old Italian man behind the counter, Sal, who had worked there for 32 years and knew everything about everybody, pretended not to watch. The rain intensified. The neon open sign flickered red then blue then red again, painting the diner in colors that belonged to danger and hospitals. At 3:02 in the morning, the door opened. Luca Caruso entered the diner like a man stepping out of the storm itself, and the storm clung to him. His black shirt was plastered to his chest, revealing the definition of a body that belonged to someone who survived by being dangerous. Water dripped from his dark hair in steady streams. His jaw was tight enough that the scar running from his left temple to his jawline seemed to deepen, a white slash against skin burned dark by the storm's electricity. His eyes scanned the diner in one professional sweep, the counter, the kitchen, the booths. 6'2", muscular without softness, the kind of presence that made the 3 other customers at the counter suddenly very interested in their eggs. His gaze found the corner booth and stopped. He crossed the diner slowly, deliberately, each step controlled. Not wanting to scare Emma. Understanding, the way dangerous men sometimes did, that children needed to be approached like frightened animals. Emma cried out. Papa! She launched herself at him before he reached the booth, and Luca caught her like she was made of glass, like she was the most precious thing in the world, and perhaps she was. His hands checked her with the gentleness of a man who had spent his entire life learning violence, trying to unlearn it, trying to become something other than what his father had made him. He knelt at the booth, eye level with Mia, and his voice when he spoke was quiet. Controlled. Like thunder that had learned to whisper. Is she hurt? No. Just scared. I found her 25 minutes ago. She ran here. What's your name? Mia hesitated. Homeless people learn not to give real names. Names were power. Names could be used. But something in his eyes, something that looked like understanding, not pity, made her answer. Mia. Mia Morales. He repeated it like he was memorizing it, like he was carving it somewhere permanent inside himself. His hands continued their examination of Emma, checking her arms, her legs, her small fingers. And then his fingers brushed the edge of Mia's sleeve, pushing it up half an inch. The scar was visible. White, old, deliberate. A map of hell written on her skin in a language only certain people could read. His eyes flicked to hers. Recognition. Not pity. Understanding. He knew what those scars meant. Mia pulled her sleeve down fast. The movement was automatic, ashamed. She had learned to hide them the way she had learned to hide everything, efficiently, without drawing attention, without asking for help. Luca stood, still holding Emma. We're going home. He turned back once, before moving toward the door. Marco and Nino were entering, both soaked, both armed with the specific weight that came from carrying weapons. Luca told them stand down. This woman saved Emma, and something in his voice made it clear that Mia Morales was no longer a threat assessment but a fact. Thank you, he said. 2 words. They carried weight. When they were gone, when the black SUVs had disappeared into the rain like they were being swallowed by the storm, Sal came to the booth. He was old, Italian, had worked here long enough to know every criminal in Boston by their breakfast order. You know who that was? Mia shook her head. That was Luca Caruso. That was the daughter of the most powerful man in this city. And you just saved her? On the booth table, Luca had left $200. Mia stared at the bills like they were evidence of something impossible. Her entire monthly income was $130 in tips from shifts at the coffee shop, supplemented by the $50 the shelter paid her for kitchen work. $200 was 6 weeks of survival. $200 was a tank of gas and food for 2 months if she was careful. $200 was kindness from someone dangerous, and she did not know if that was a blessing or a threat. She did not know that Luca was already making phone calls from the back of his SUV, that Marco was already investigating, that within hours Luca would know her entire history. Mia Morales, age 31, widow, her husband Daniel dead 5 years from a construction accident. Living in a 2008 Honda Civic parked behind the laundromat on Hanover Street. Running from a man named Douglas Hale, Boston Police Department, badge number 4721, 6 assault complaints filed against him by 6 different women, 6 complaints that disappeared from the system like they were never written. 3 days later, Mia was at the public library, sitting in the reading room where the air conditioning worked and the bathroom had hot water. The library was her daytime sanctuary. Free. Safe. No one knew her here. Her phone rang. Unknown number. When she answered, the voice was silk over steel. Mia Morales. Yes? This is Sophie Langford. I'm calling about your loan. Mia's stomach dropped. Sophie Langford. She had tried not to think about Sophie Langford for months. Had tried to pretend the debt was something that could be ignored if she simply did not answer the phone, did not check her email, did not acknowledge its existence. Ms. Langford. I'm trying to make arrangements. I don't need arrangements. I need payment. The full amount. $35,000. Due in 3 days. Saturday at 5 p.m. The words landed like bullets. Mia's voice shook. I'm homeless. I'm trying. I can make partial payments. I don't accept excuses. I accept money. $35,000 by Saturday at 5 p.m. or I will exercise every legal option available to me. And Mia, I have excellent lawyers. They can make your life very difficult. The call ended. Mia sat in the library bathroom stall for 2 hours, doing mathematics on her phone calculator that would not change the answer no matter how many times she pressed the numbers. $278 minus $35,000 equals impossible. At 6 in the evening, a black Mercedes pulled up outside the shelter where she was serving dinner. Marco stepped out first, then opened the back door. Luca Caruso emerged in a charcoal suit that cost more than everything Mia owned, and every volunteer in the shelter went quiet. The kind of quiet that came when something dangerous entered a space designed for the broken. He approached her at the serving line. "Can we talk?" The shelter's small office smelled of industrial cleaner and donated clothes. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The sounds of children playing filtered through the closed door. Luca sat across from her at a desk covered in donation forms. "I've been making inquiries," he said. "About you? About what happened to you? I know about Douglas Hale. I know about the loan from Sophie Langford. I know that you have 3 days to pay $35,000 or face consequences you don't deserve." Mia's defenses rose immediately. "Why would you investigate me?" "Because you saved my daughter and asked for nothing. That makes you either a saint or running from something. In my experience, it's usually the second." She stood to leave. Luca did not move. $35,000, he said. "I can make that disappear." Mia froze. "Why would you help me?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm nobody." Luca's eyes met hers, and something in them, something that looked like his own history of scars, made her believe he understood exactly what she meant. "You're not nobody. You're the woman who pulled my daughter out of the rain when you had $78 to your name and a car that barely runs. You're the woman I saw, for just a moment, with scars on her arms written in a language I learned as a child. I know what those scars mean, Mia. Someone hurt you. Someone with power hurt you, and no one stopped him." She told him everything. 8 years with Douglas Hale. The first hit, the apology; the second hit, the smile. The cigarette burns on her back. The broken bottle. The way he used his badge to erase her complaints from the system, to make other cops believe she was unstable, to make sure there was no record of what he had done. When she finished, Luca's jaw was tight. In 15 years of working for Luca Caruso, Marco, standing guard outside the office, had never seen him look like that. Like he was deciding how someone would disappear. "I'll pay your debt," Luca said. "All 35,000. And I'll make sure Douglas Hale never touches you again. I don't want to owe you. You don't owe me anything. Consider it a thank you. Nobody gives away $35,000 as a thank you. What do you really want?" Luca was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was honest. "I want you to let me help. I want you to stop sleeping in your car. I want you to be safe. Because I couldn't save my mother from my father's fists. Because I built everything I have on making sure no one under my protection suffers. Because when I look at you, I see someone who survived hell and still stopped to save a scared little girl in the rain. That's not nothing, Mia. That's everything." But what Mia did not know was happening 3 blocks away at that exact moment. Douglas Hale, badge number 4721, was moving through the streets with purpose. He had tracked her phone to this neighborhood. He was close. And in a high-rise office across the city, Sophie Langford was making her own phone call, reporting to people who wanted leverage on Luca Caruso. The debt had never been about money. It was about a trap. The 6 a.m. light is grey and thin when Mia's eyes snap open. Her heart is already hammering before her mind catches up to why. The banging on the Honda's window isn't stopping. Bang! 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 Like a fist keeping time with her panic. She sees him through the glass before she wants to. Douglas Hale. Freshly shaven, polo shirt tucked in, jeans that cost more than her weekly meals, that smile that made her stomach turn inside out for 8 years. The smile that came before the fists. Before the cigarettes. Before the broken bottle and the way he'd whisper, "No one will believe you. I'm the cop. You're the crazy one." His police badge hangs from his belt like jewelry. Mia doesn't open the door. Her hand finds the ignition. Douglas leans down, presses his phone against the window. The screen shows a photo, Mia and Luca Caruso at the shelter 3 days ago, his hand on her back, her head turned toward him like she was listening to something that mattered. His voice comes muffled through the glass. "Making new friends, baby? Dangerous friends. He smiles wider. You think a mafia boss is going to protect you? He's going to use you up and throw you away. That's what men like that do. You should come home. I've been patient. The engine turns over. Douglas's palm slams the hood. The sound cracks through the morning air like a gunshot. I wasn't finished talking to you. Mia reverses hard, clips a dumpster, doesn't care. The tires screech on wet pavement. In her rearview mirror, Douglas stands in the street, laughing like it's the funniest thing he's ever seen. Like he knows something she doesn't. Like he has all the time in the world. She drives for blocks and parks behind a closed furniture store. Her hands shake so badly she can't grip the steering wheel. She's crying, and she hates herself for it. Hate is the only thing that keeps her warm. At 10 a.m., the cafe is everything designed to make her feel small. White marble tables. Polished espresso machines. A pianist in the corner playing Chopin like it's background music for rich people's problems. The smell of overpriced coffee hangs thick and suffocating. Sophie Langford is already seated. She looks like she walked out of a magazine, blonde hair styled like it takes no effort, designer dress in cream and gold, nails that gleam. Her eyes are the color of ice over deep water. Empty. Calculating. Cruel in the way only beautiful people can be cruel, because the world has always rewarded her for it. Sophie doesn't stand. Doesn't offer to buy Mia coffee. Just watches her sit down with the expression of someone observing an insect under glass. You don't have it, do you? Sophie says. Not a question. I need more time. Sophie slides a document across the marble table. The loan agreement. Mia's signature. $35,000. Due tomorrow at 5 p.m. Time isn't part of our agreement, Mia. We discussed this when you signed. Sophie takes a delicate sip of cappuccino. Let me be very clear about what happens if you don't pay. We can garnish every penny you'll ever earn. We can seize your vehicle. We can make sure you never work in this city again. You'll be radioactive. No employer will touch you. No shelter will take you in. You'll be a ghost, Mia. A dead ghost. Mia's voice comes out barely a whisper. Why are you doing this? You know I can't pay. You knew when I signed. Sophie leans forward. Her voice drops, and somehow that's worse than if she'd screamed. Because people like you need to learn that debt has consequences. And because the Brennan family pays me very, very well to make problems for people Luca Caruso cares about. She smiles, and it's genuine, which is the most terrifying thing of all. Oh yes, I know about your little friendship. That diner rescue was very touching. So here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., you will deliver $35,000 to my office. Or I will make sure both the Brennans and your charming ex-boyfriend Douglas know exactly where to find you. I believe he's been looking for you. The cafe spins. Or Mia spins. Or the world spins and Mia stays still. She walks out into harsh sunlight that feels like punishment. That night at 11 p.m., she parks on the bridge overlooking Boston Harbor. The rain has started again, lighter this time, tapping the windshield like persistent questions. Her hands shake as she counts her money for the 7th time. $278. Not enough. Never enough. She's called every shelter. All full. She's looked at job listings. Nothing pays fast enough. Nothing pays at all. Douglas knows where she is. Sophie is sending people. The Brennans, whoever they are, want to hurt Luca through her. And Luca, if she stays with him, becomes a target because of her. The harbor below is black and endless. The rain blurs the windshield into static. One car. One bridge. One moment where it would be so easy to stop fighting. To let the water take her. To stop being afraid. Her hand moves toward the door handle. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. A text from Emma. This is Emma. Papa gave me your number. Are you okay? Miss you. Attached is a photo. A drawing in colored pencil. 2 stick figures holding hands, one labeled Emma in wobbly letters, one labeled MIA, hearts floating around them like they were the most natural thing in the world. Mia stares at that drawing for 5 minutes. Her hand leaves the door handle. She texts back, "I'm okay, sweetheart. Miss you too." She starts the car. Drives away from the bridge. What she doesn't know is that Marco has been watching since morning. Marco saw Douglas come to her car. Marco watched her drive away panicked. Marco watched her park on the bridge at 11 p.m. Marco called Luca at 11:03. And Luca, who understands the weight of drowning better than most men, told Emma to text her immediately. At midnight, Luca makes a call to Nino. His voice is flat. Final. Handle Douglas Hale. Make it permanent. And find where the Brennans are keeping their records on Sophie. Everything. I want to know every name, every transaction, every victim. The clock in Luca's study ticks. At 2 a.m. Saturday morning, 12 men in black tactical gear move through Douglas's apartment building like smoke. No sirens. No lights. No sound. The security cameras have been dark for 15 minutes. Douglas wakes to find Luca Caruso sitting in a chair at the foot of his bed. 6 men stand in the shadows, their forms barely visible. Black clothes. Black gloves. Patient. Waiting. Douglas's hand lunges for his service weapon on the nightstand. Marco steps forward. Removes it. Sets it on the dresser. "You can't do this," Douglas says. His voice cracks. "I'm a cop." Luca's voice is quiet. It's the quietness that kills. You spent 8 years beating a woman half your size. You burned her with cigarettes. You cut her with broken glass. You used your badge to make sure she had nowhere to run. You used your position to erase her pain. To make other cops think she was unstable. You erased her. She told you. She didn't have to. I saw the scars. I made some calls. 3 other women filed reports against you over 6 years. All of them disappeared from the system. All marked as unstable. All silenced. Douglas's face goes white. Wait. Wait, we can make a deal. Luca stands. His coat falls around him like a shadow. I don't make deals with men who hurt women. He pauses. The Brennan family has been wanting to have a conversation with someone in Boston PD about territory and payment. I'm going to give them you. As a gift. They're very creative, Douglas. They keep people alive for a very long time. Douglas's voice becomes an animal sound. Not words. Just terror shaped into noise. 4 men drag him from the apartment in handcuffs. His screaming echoes down the hallway and fades into nothing. Luca stays behind. Finds Douglas's hidden files in a locked drawer. 8 years of documentation. Photos of Mia. Her addresses. Her routines. Her phone records. Every place she's ever gone. Every person she's ever trusted. A trophy collection of surveillance. He takes the files. Leaves Douglas's badge on the empty bed. At 3 a.m., federal agents move through Sophie Langford's office building with search warrants and forensic accountants. Luca didn't handle Sophie himself. Instead, he made a single phone call to a federal prosecutor he'd done business with years ago, provided every piece of evidence, connected Sophie's loan operation to the Brennans' larger RICO structure. The feds have been building a case for 2 years. Sophie is the crack. The foundation finally gives way. Sophie is arrested at dawn. Silk pajamas. Bewildered face turning to rage, turning to something worse as agents read her rights at her front door. News vans pulling up. Cameras. Her neighbors watching from windows. her entire curated existence collapsing in real time while the morning light gets harsh and exposing. At the federal building, she learns the charges: racketeering, extortion, wire fraud, conspiracy. 40 years minimum. Her assets frozen. Her loans, including Mia's, are under federal investigation and legally void pending trial. Sophie Langford, socialite, loan shark, accomplice to organized crime. Her mugshot runs in every news outlet by Sunday morning. Her family's lawyers issue a statement distancing themselves. Her friends become people who never knew her. At 7 a.m. Saturday, Mia wakes in her Honda Civic parked behind the laundromat on Hanover Street. The same laundromat. The same spot. The same life. Then she hears it. The sound of engines. Not one. Not two. 20 black limousines turning the corner onto Hanover Street, moving in perfect formation like a funeral procession or an army. Windows tinted black. Each one the length of a small house. Each one worth more than Mia will ever make in her entire life. The first limousine stops in front of her car. The rear door opens. Luca Caruso steps out into the early morning light wearing a suit that costs more than everything she has ever owned combined. His men emerge from the other limousines. Marco. Nino. 15 others she doesn't recognize. She opens her car door slowly. Stands. Her legs feel like water. Luca walks toward her. His eyes find hers. Douglas Hale is no longer a problem. Sophie Langford is in federal custody. Your debt is legally void. They're keeping her for 40 years. Mia's mouth opens. No sound comes out. You're not a ghost anymore, Mia, Luca says. His voice is solid. Real. Like the only thing that matters. You're free. He extends his hand. Sometimes one hand reached out at the right moment can change an entire life. The morning light cuts through the windshield of Mia's 2008 Honda Civic like a knife, harsh and exposing, revealing dust particles floating in air that smells like stale coffee and desperation. She sits in the driver's seat with her hands trembling, a manila envelope on her lap bearing the federal seal. Inside, the charges against Sophie Langford. Racketeering. Extortion. Wire fraud. Conspiracy. 40 years minimum. Her assets frozen. The loan, all $35,000 of it, legally void pending trial. Mia reads the words 3 times. 4 times. They don't change. The Honda's engine ticks as it cools. Behind her, the laundromat is opening. Fluorescent lights flicker on inside. A woman pushes a cart full of whites and colors toward the machines, the wheels squeaking against the concrete floor. Normal. Everything is normal except that Mia's entire body feels like it's vibrating at a frequency only she can hear. She pulls out her phone. There are 17 missed calls from numbers she doesn't recognize. She scrolls through her notifications. Sophie Langford's mugshot is everywhere. The woman's blonde hair is matted. Her makeup is smeared. Her eyes are hollow in a way that suggests she's finally understood that her world is collapsing. Mia sets the phone down on the passenger seat. Breathes. The steering wheel is warm under her palms. At 7:13 a.m., engines turn the corner onto Hanover Street. Not one engine. Not two. The sound builds like distant thunder, growing closer, multiplying. Mia's head snaps up. Through the laundromat's front windows, she watches as the first black limousine emerges from the fog, its chrome catching the early light. Then the second. Then the third. They move in perfect formation down the narrow street, 20 vehicles in total, each one the length of a small house, each one worth more than Mia will earn in her entire life combined. Windows tinted black. Tires so clean they shine. Drivers in charcoal suits standing at attention beside each vehicle like soldiers awaiting orders. The first limousine pulls directly in front of her Honda. Mia's breath catches in her throat. Every person inside the laundromat has stopped what they're doing. The woman with a cart of clothes stares. An old man folding towels in the corner stares. A teenager scrolling on her phone looks up and stares. The rear door of the first limousine opens. Luca Caruso steps out into the morning light wearing a suit that costs more than everything Mia has ever owned combined. Dark fabric, tailored to perfection, opened at the collar to reveal the gold chain around his neck. His hair is black, swept back from his face, silver threading at his temples like frost on stone. His eyes find hers across the parking lot and something in her chest cracks open. Behind him, Marco emerges. Then Nino. Then 15 men she doesn't recognize, all in black suits, all moving with the synchronized precision of a military unit. They fan out across the parking lot, their presence transforming the ordinary concrete into something dangerous, something that belongs to them now. Emma steps out of the second limousine wearing a yellow sundress, her dark hair in braids. She runs toward Luca, grabs his hand, and when she sees Mia through the Honda's windshield, she grins with the unself-consciousness of a child who doesn't yet understand that some people don't deserve happiness. Mia opens the car door slowly. Her legs feel like water, like they might dissolve beneath her. She stands. The morning air is cool and smells like leather and expensive cologne drifting from the open limousine doors. Luca crosses the parking lot toward her. His shoes click against the concrete with each step, measured and deliberate, the footsteps of a man accustomed to silence falling when he moves. Marco and Nino keep their distance, but their presence is felt like pressure in the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. What is this? Mia's voice is barely a whisper, barely a thing at all. Your debt to Sophie Langford is gone, Luca says. His voice is deep and solid like an oath, like a thing that cannot be broken. She was arrested by the FBI this morning. Federal charges. The loan is legally void. Mia tries to speak. No sound emerges. Douglas Hale won't bother you again, Luca continues. His dark eyes never leave hers. He's been handed to people who will make sure he understands exactly what he did. He won't be coming back. Not to Boston. Not anywhere you might be. I don't understand. Mia's voice cracks like old ice. How did you, why would you? I told you I would keep you safe, Luca says. He steps closer, close enough that she can smell his cologne, something expensive and dark like cedar and smoke. I meant it. Emma tugs on Luca's hand. Papa says you can come live with us. We have lots of rooms. The biggest one has a window that looks at the garden. Mia looks at the child, then at Luca. Her knees feel weak. I can't accept this. I can't accept any of this. You're not accepting charity, Luca says. His jaw is tight. His voice carries the weight of someone used to giving commands that are never questioned. You're accepting help from someone who understands what it means to survive something that should have destroyed you. He turns slightly, gestures to Marco, who approaches carrying a leather box. Inside, legal documents showing her debts cleared. Contracts. A job offer. New clothes still in their packaging. A laptop. A phone with her number already activated. Toiletries. Everything she needs to become something other than invisible. The first limousine carries the legal paperwork, Luca explains. The second has keys to an apartment in a building I own. Safe neighborhood. Ground floor, so Emma can come visit. The third holds a job offer to manage the community outreach program at my restaurants. The fourth, he pauses as Marco opens the box. Everything else you need. The rest is yours. Mia stares at the contents. Her hands shake. She can't reach toward them. You can walk away right now, Luca says, and something in his voice shifts, becomes vulnerable in a way that makes it clear this matters to him. You can take the apartment and the job and never see me again. No obligation. No debt. Nothing beyond what you choose to give. Or you can let me be part of your life while you rebuild. The choice is entirely yours. Why? Tears spill down Mia's face without permission. Why would you do this for me? Luca is quiet for a long moment. His men hold perfectly still, understanding that this moment is important, that their boss is about to say something he has never said before. When he speaks, his voice is softer than it should be coming from a man like him. 8 years ago, no one stopped my father's fists. No one protected my mother. No one protected me. I built everything I have on a single promise: if I had the power to stop someone from being hurt, I would use it. You saved my daughter when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. You survived something that should have broken you. You deserve a chance to live without looking over your shoulder. He extends his hand. So I'm asking you. Let me help. Not because you owe me, but because you deserve it. Mia takes his hand. His grip is warm and solid and real. Emma wraps her arms around Mia's waist. Does this mean yes? Papa, does this mean she's staying? That's her choice, little one, Luca says, and when Mia looks at him, she sees something fierce and protective burning behind his eyes. Something that says he will move heaven and earth to keep this moment real. Yes, Mia whispers. Yes to the apartment. Yes to the job. Yes to, only yes. Luca nods once. The finality of it settles over them like a benediction. He releases her hand but doesn't step back. Marco and Nino exchange a look, the kind of look that passes between men who have just witnessed something shift in the world. In 15 years, neither has seen their boss extend this kind of tenderness to anyone outside his blood family. The limousines remain parked in their perfect line down Hanover Street, silent and waiting, their presence transforming everything. 20 vehicles carrying Mia's entire future. 20 vehicles that say she is no longer nobody. She is seen. She is protected. She is loved. What neither of them understands yet is that this is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of something that will require them both to learn how to trust, how to love, how to build something real on the foundation of their broken places. The months ahead will be slow and careful and full of small moments that matter more than either of them can comprehend. But standing in that parking lot, with the morning light turning everything golden, with Emma's arms around her waist and Luca's presence like a wall of protection, Mia Morales feels something she hasn't felt in 8 years. She feels safe. 6 months later, Mia stands in the community center that now bears her name, a renovated building in South Boston where the walls are painted in soft colors and the smell of fresh coffee mingles with the sound of children's laughter. She's gained back the weight she lost. Her hair is healthy. Her clothes are chosen by her, not scavenged from donations. When she smiles, it reaches her eyes, which no longer hold that hunted look. Emma comes after school 3 days a week, does homework at Mia's desk, tells her about piano lessons and the new friend she's made. Mia has discovered that Luca has been funding domestic violence shelters across Boston for 12 years, always anonymously. She's learned that Marco has a daughter. She's learned that the men who seem terrifying are, in their own way, trying to be better. Tonight, Luca picks her up for their first real date. No Emma. No pretense. Just them. In the car, Mia says, "I never properly thanked you." "You thank me every day," Luca replies. "Every woman you help, every kid who has a safe place after school, that's the thank you." They have dinner at a small Italian restaurant where no one knows his name. They talk for 3 hours about scars, about survival, about learning to trust. At the end of the night, standing outside her apartment, Luca asks, "Can I see you again?" Mia kisses him, soft and certain. Yes. Sometimes one hand reached out at the right moment can change an entire life. If this story moved you, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to know that one moment of kindness can rewrite a life. Subscribe for more stories about love, justice, and second chances. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is be there when someone needs you most. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We will see you again in the next video.